and welcome to the Borealis Experience. I'm your host Aurora, and I'm very happy to be spending some time with you today. It's just going to be 10 minutes, 11 minutes that you can use to rest and relax, unwind from a busy day, from a busy mind, and just come back to yourself. Today I want to talk about conditional love. I think we all know what unconditional love is, and we also know what conditional love is. Not because of reading about it, but because of living it. Especially the ladies out there, but of course the gentlemen listening here can maybe relate, or maybe you're not aware of it yet, that you have a lot of conditions, a lot of expectations, a lot of harsh thoughts when it comes to you and the way you live, the way you look, the way you feel. Let's take an example. A girl who wants to lose weight, and she looks into the mirror and just sees that her pants are not fitting anymore, and in her mind she compares herself to the other ladies out there, and she decides to start a diet. And she starts it with a harsh comment, like, you look fat, you will never be successful, you are a failure, you have no discipline, blah blah blah. And she will use that to lose weight. Well, is she gonna be successful? Chances are, if she beats herself up on a regular, she can be successful. But is that sustainable and healthy and good the way she approaches it? Well, from an outsider's perspective, of course not. If she was to approach it from a self-love point of view and just seeing that she could lose a little more weight, but to be healthier, to live in a more healthier space, then approaching her diet in the future would come from a place of love instead of guilt and punishment and shame. Because if we approach something with conditional love, what happens if we fail? What happens if the other person disappoints us? Well, we are only left with a huge disappointment and having to punish or regret or anything. If we approach it with the heart, then we can be more forgiving. And if we are more forgiving, things are long-lasting and meant for us in the future. Have a look at the guy who looks into the mirror and sees perfection. His hair is awesome. He is reaching all the goals that he's setting himself. And he can be described as a very successful man. But is he happy? Most of those men are not happy. They focus so much on being perfect and accomplishing that they have a hard time relating to their partners and being compassionate and loving them unconditionally. And why is that? Because they don't love themselves unconditionally. And if you don't love and accept yourself unconditionally, well, how can you do that for another person? And is it not what we're all craving? We're all craving to be accepted and seen as who we are. We don't want to be with a partner who, as soon as we gain a little bit of weight or as soon as we lose our job, looks down on us and makes us feel like a failure. If we feel like a failure already, we want a partner who can see that we will dig ourselves out of that dirty hole and just continue being awesome. We want our partner to have faith. But if that partner, if that person is looking into the mirror in the morning and just sees perfection, doesn't look into his eyes and can see pain and regret and mistakes and happiness and contentment and appreciation, if he doesn't see all that, if all he sees is perfection, then he will surely expect that from the outside world, and he will just live in huge disappointment because life, love especially, is not perfect. There's no perfection anywhere on planet Earth except if we create it artificially, and then it's very hard to maintain and very exhausting for all participants. Let's look at the guy who wants to stop smoking. You deeply reflect about yourself and you find out that, you're smoking and you're not really doing it anymore out of passion for the taste. You do it out of a habit, and you're kind of in that habit and you hate yourself every time you light that cigarette. Well, resentment is not going to bring you far. And to say that you're only going to start loving and accepting yourself once you stop smoking is also not going to help you further in that quest. So how can you approach it if you want to stop smoking? If that guy wants to give up that habit that is so costly and also, not good for his health. Well, first of all, he can maybe dig a little deeper and find out why he needs that habit. What is it that he would miss if he was to stop that habit? And then he can see that he's awesome the way he is, but his body would be so much healthier and a better place and all that jazz if he was to quit. So if he reaches a point where he can have compassion for his body again, and he can see that he's not doing it out of enjoyment, the cigarette smoking, but because of a laziness and habit, then you can move yourself out of that addiction way easier than if you approach it with contempt and harshness and punishment. Because you might fall back, and then you shouldn't just fall back and say, well, I'm just a failure anyways. You can fall back and say, hey, it is hard to quit, but I want to do this for myself. I want to show up for myself and stop that habit that is harming myself. So those 3 little stories are just a few examples of conditional love. And I hope you can see that as soon as we give up being conditional with ourselves, we're also more forgiving and loving with others. And some people are very good at being loving and accepting of others, but are very harsh on themselves. Well, that episode is for you. And the people who try to live in perfection and can only see themselves lovable if they are perfect, if they are accomplishing at least one goal every day, if they look perfect, if they eat the perfect food, if they exercise the perfect, awesome sport, then I lost my train of thought. But I know you followed and you know exactly what I mean. All those people that I described have to start loving and accepting themselves, and then they will also feel richer in their relationships and expect less from their partners and be more compassionate and understanding. And if it comes to change, you can help your partner as well to approach it from a space of love instead of harsh, mind-driven approaches. Thank you so much for listening to this episode about conditional love. Maybe you have a conditional lover in your life and you can make them aware of it. Maybe not. And maybe it is yourself who can become a little more aware that you don't need to be harsh with yourself and beat yourself up in order to be good out there, in order to love yourself. Thank you so much for listening to the Borealis Experience. I'm your host, Aurora, and I'll be out there for you tomorrow again. Thank you. Bye-bye.